Okay, Shaler, today we're going to go over how to replace a GFCI outlet. So what is a GFCI outlet? A GFCI outlet is a ground fault circuit interrupter outlet. And what that is it's usually in bathrooms and in kitchens. So if you had a hair dryer that was plugged in at the time that you were drying your hair, and you took a hair dryer and you plugged it in, and then you had it going and you accidentally dropped it in a sink, or you dropped it in the toilet, or you dropped it in the shower, instead of electrocuting yourself, what it would do is it would pop the circuit. So if you look on here, this is a circuit breaker inside of the actual outlet. There's a button here and a button here. One says test, one says reset. So if I hit the test button, it pops the reset button out. If I hit the reset button in, it holds in. Over time, what happens is that is held in there by a spring that pushes it out, but it's also held in there with electricity. And over time, there's a clip in there that will wear out over a long period of time, especially if this gets reset and it gets pushed every once in a while. You're supposed to test that regularly so that if you did drop a hair dryer or a curling iron or something along that line, or if you were charging your phone and you dropped the whole outlet or the whole charger inside of the sink or inside of a toilet, and a kid went to grab it, or you hurried up and just went to grab for that you wouldn't electrocute yourself. So it should pop the main circuit if that happens, but that's not always the case. So code in all kitchens and in all wet areas is to have a GFCI. Now, this isn't the only protected outlet in the bathroom. This usually, depending on how much amperage you're going to pull or how many outlets you have in your bathroom, usually a GFCI will power every outlet in that bathroom, usually. Now, in a kitchen, that's not the case, because in a kitchen, you have appliances that pull a lot of power. So they're on separate circuits. Usually, a bathroom, I say, is all on one GFCI. So if you are over here, if you are in your bathroom or in your house somewhere, and that GFCI pops, that GFCI will normally run all of your outlets. So there's an outlet here in my house, and then if I go down here, there's an outlet here, and then if I look over here, there is another outlet. All four of those outlets, or these three outlets, are powered by the GFCI. So if they're not wired like that, what you want to do is you want to determine where the power comes from and what GFCI is operating those. If you're in a bathroom, chances are it's powered by a GFCI or protected by a GFCI. So what we're going to do today is we're going to show you how to take this apart, how we're going to switch it out with a new one, and then make sure that it operates the other outlets. The first thing you need to do when you're working with any electricity is to shut off the power to that outlet. Now, because the way this is set up, this power into this bathroom only is on one breaker. So when I kill the breaker, the lighting's going to be a little bit dim. So I'm going to take care of some of the stuff that I can take care of right now without turning it off. So the first thing you want to do is take your switch or your outlet cover off. To do that, it's usually a flathead or a Phillips head screwdriver. There's usually two screws. Sometimes there's only one screw, depending on if it's a square or if it's a octagonal one. So you'll pull that off. This is your outlet. Now that you get to this point, you do want to turn the main breaker off. Like I said, it is going to get a little bit dark in here. So I have a lamp that is set up, and I think it's going to give us enough power or enough view of that when we go to work on it. So I set up a lamp, and I'm going to actually shut the power off in the breaker box. So we come out here and we go into the breaker box, which is here, and we find out which outlet actually runs it. So that's number 15. It says basement bathroom. So when I go to let's go zoom in on that. There we go, basement bathroom. So I come over here to 15 and I shut it off. Now when I come back in to the bathroom, you're going to see that all the lights are off, but you can still see what's going on. Let me go in and focus in on the outlet. So now what I'm going to do is the top screw and the bottom screw here are two Phillips head screwdrivers, or two Phillips head screws, so you'll loosen those. let's do one more thing. To make sure that that is the power to this, I'm going to plug in the hairdryer just to check it, just to make sure it is the correct outlet before I pull that out of the box. I turn on the hairdryer and it will not turn on, so there's the power from there. So now you know that you can touch the wires inside of there without getting shocked. There's also meters that you can use if you have a little meter to test to see if there's power brought in there. So now we're going to loosen this bottom screw, and as you can see, the GFCI is starting to come out of the wall. Pull your other screw, and you can pull your whole thing out of there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to loosen these screws on the outlet. So there's one on this side and one on the other side. So we loosen this. That'll pop the wires out. This will pop the wires out of here. There we go. And that is your power. This is your ground. And the bottom screw, which is kind of hard to see because it's a little bit dark, is a green screw, and that's also a ground. So we loosen that. And we take all those wires off. To replace it, it's the opposite. Now, if you look on one of these, it'll tell you, and it's kind of hard to see. I will have to do it with the old one once I get a little bit more light, and I'll show you. There is a load side, and then there is a line side. So what does that mean? The line means the power coming in, okay? The power that is actually coming into the box is the line side. The load side means that it is pushing power out to the other outlets. So when you hook onto these, you have to make sure that you wire it correctly. One of the powers, the blacks, are coming from the fuse box, okay? And the other one is coming and going to feed the other outlets. So the first thing we need to do is, I have usually marked inside of there, yeah, this is my load, this is my line, and I have to make sure that the same wire comes from both wires, because there's two wires going into that box. So let me see. This wire goes with this wire, so you need to make sure you put those on the load and these on the line. There we go. Now, I don't see, I thought I had it marked in there which one was the load and which was the line, but I don't. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go get a meter and figure out which one of these is my load and which one is my line. So give me 1 minute. We're going to pause you there. Okay, now I am back and I'm going to test to see which one of these has power. So what I do, I'm going to have to go back out, turn the breaker on. Now you got to be careful because these will be live once you turn the breaker on. And what you're going to do is put these two leads on there. With your meter, you're going to turn it to volts of alternating current, not direct current. That is what would come out of a car, but alternating current is what comes into your house. So let me turn the power back on. All right, I turned the power back on. You're going to put your leads on your wires and see which one is reading 120 volts. So this one is reading 120. Let's just make sure this one isn't as well. This one is reading, no, this one's reading nothing. So this is my line. That's your line in. This is your load, which means that's what's taking power to the other switches or lights in that room. So there's a load on there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to replace that. So I have to go back and turn the power back off. Don't forget that. That's important. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the outlet. I'm going to take and on the line side, we determined that this was my line side. I'm going to put my wires in there. So you got your hots and you have your neutrals. Your hots always go to your brass screw. Sometimes the outlets are actually labeled. So my brass screw is actually, it's hard to see, but it's on this. Let me see if I can get it in the light. It's on this side, and my other ones are not brass, okay? So I'm gonna turn and put this on like this here. This is my line side, not my load side. So I'm going to put this in my line tighten it up. On the opposite side of that goes my line ground wire. That goes in there, tighten it up. Now this is all with the power off. I can't stress that enough. If you go in there and start messing around without the power off, you're gonna know you have. Now this is gonna go here. This is gonna be my load. This is what's carrying power to my other outlets. So this is gonna go into there, same side. White stays on the same side. That's your ground, that gets tightened. So black goes on the other side. Whoops, this one wasn't tight. And your black goes on the other side. And you tighten it up. And then last but not least, you put your ground screw, your ground wire is gonna go up top. We're gonna turn this around so the ground screw falls down. Let me straighten that out with a pair of needle knives. There we go. There we go. And my ground wire will go in the bottom and be tightened up in there. Once you do that, you can test this. You want to make sure that no wires are touching one another. You can test your work before you put it back in the box. I don't suggest putting that back in the box with the power on, but you can at least test your work. You want to make sure that you don't touch any of these terminals. You can touch the front. It's like a regular outlet. So we're going to go like this. We're going to turn the power back on. Your work, I turned the power back on. Now what you want to do, don't touch these terminals. They'll shock you. So what you want to do now is you can hold here and here. You can push this button. As you can see, the hair dryer turned back on. The lights turned back on. If I hit this, now everything's shut off inside the bathroom. Everything's on a ground fault so that you don't get electrocuted should you get water next to electricity inside the bathroom. Now that you have that done, you want to shut your power back off and put this back in the wall the same way that it came out. Once you do that, you're done. That GFCI, they'll last a lot of years. I think this one's about 12 or 13 years old. Just started to wear out. Every once in a while it would come in and it would be popped. They'll lose their strength after so many years and you have to replace them. So this one's been giving me trouble sporadically over the past few months. So I decided instead of going to Home Depot and buying one for about $17, that's what one of these switches roughly cost, I was able to get online and find one for about $5. I bought a 3-pack so that I have them. I know that if this one's bad, a lot of the remodeling that was done in my house was about the same time that the other ones will go bad as well, and they were much cheaper. So that's how you replace an outlet. Any outlet's basically the same. GFCIs are a little bit different because they have a line side, which the line, don't forget, is the power coming in. In the load side, don't forget this, is what the power you're taking power to. So if you're taking power to other outlets, that's the load. There's a load on that. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Other than that, that's how you replace a GFCI. This would get pushed back in. I'm not going to touch it now because it's live. That gets pushed back in. Your 2 screws go in here and here, and then you turn your faceplate back on with 2 screws there. Self-explanatory. All right, have a good one.